Okay, we're back after our break. This is Patrick the Backwoods Tech, and you're listening to Dr. Rob, Spirits of Supernatural. And we're getting ready to have Gary Coleman on with us. And Dr. Rob, is Gary Coleman here right now?
Yes, Patrick, he is. Actually, he is here with Dana Plato, his co-star in Different Strokes, and she seems to be very anxious to speak with us, and so I guess we will start with her, even though we had intended to only interview Gary. Sometimes on the other side, the one with the strongest voice needs to go first, and so I think that we should start with Dana, and we'll do that now.
Great, because that was going to be one of my questions later on, was how is Dana? So I had a feeling she may show up. Now I know I myself, just like the rest of the world, was pretty much shocked and saddened by both of your passings. Dana, what would you say was the cause of your death?
She actually tells me that she was murdered. She was given a drug overdose, she says, and she was intentionally murdered. And I think that's one of the reasons why she's so excited now, and not in a good way excited. She seems very agitated and just really wants to clear the record up on a lot of subjects, especially when it comes to her passing. She said that, people were trying to control her even at the end of her life, like they did throughout her whole life. She said that she was never really happy in this life because everyone was, judgmental of her and really just, after what she had to offer, not only just because of her fame, but because of some of the money that she had.
Yes, I remember years back, it wasn't long after Different Strokes that I had read where her accountant had pretty much embezzled all of her money, and I always kind of wondered if anything ever happened out of that, because it probably definitely put her in a lot of situations that she might not have been in had she not had, the misfortune of everything being stolen from her at such a young age.
She said that she was using drugs, while she was on Different Strokes, and it kind of just skewed her mind for the rest of her life. She said that, she was always depressed, always sad, except when she was using drugs, and that was kind of, the catalyst to all the people taking advantage of her. She said that no one actually loved her for her. They only loved her for what she could do for them, and that was really the most disappointing part of her life, was just working for everybody else. She said she never really got to hold on to anything, even, when she did have money when she was on the show, her parents took it, and then her management team took it, and then her boyfriends took it, and so it was just one combination after the next.
I know it's very tragic, and unfortunately, this seems to happen a lot to especially childhood stars. Is there anything else you'd like to add as far as surrounding that? I believe she also had a son.
She did. She says that he's doing well. She kind of messed up his life when she was, in charge of his life, and she sees him as very happy. Now that she's gone, of course, he misses his mother, but really she's felt like, her life was just on such a downward spiral that this is kind of just one of those things that really helped, his life. And she talks about, everything that's happened to her, why she was alive, and, one of the things that she's, most ashamed of is that, she was actually forced into doing movies that she wouldn't normally do, and, for her that was kind of the ultimate embarrassment.
Yes, I know that was, one part of her career, and it seemed like from there it just kind of kept spiraling, and I'm sure the drugs naturally was a major cause, but it really did seem like you didn't get to ever have your own freedom.
She said no, she was constantly controlled, and she said the movie reference that she just made was she made over $1 million, but she actually didn't see a penny of it because everyone else took it before she even got a hold of it. But they kept her up, on drugs so much that she really wasn't aware of her surroundings for the last 10 years of her life. She said she just kind of just floated in a cloud, and it was just from one fix to the next.
Well, I know it's been quite a while since her passing, even though probably living some of this probably puts her in more of an agitated state, but overall, has she finally found some peace or adjusted to crossing over?
She said she's aware of her crossing, but she's not really at peace. She said that she never really got justice because no one ever really got punished for the crime. They tried to prosecute, but they weren't very successful because they couldn't actually prove who did it. And she said that, that was one of the things that, she was, in a state of a stupor for like 2 weeks. And she said she just really never came out of the coma from the drugs, because they just kept pumping them into her until her heart finally gave out. And I think that's one of the things that, when I was touching in with her, I was feeling my lungs close up, and she actually suffocated for several minutes before she actually died. So it was actually a very, very, very tragic crossing. She wasn't in part of her body for most of that 2 weeks. She said she was kind of just hovering over the situation, and she just knew that she wasn't going to be going back into the body. She said it was just easier to, kind of project outward, so she didn't feel the pain and the things that were happening to her. She said she felt her bones disintegrating and all kinds of other things that were happening to her due to the prolonged drug use.
Well, actually, at her crossing, I mean, did anyone come to greet her?
When I asked her that question, she said really she felt all alone. She was in such a state that she really just, crossed over and she was there. But she hung out for several years, she said, before she actually went into the light, as we call it. She said she was just wandering the earth and really just ignoring everyone and everything around her in the spiritual world. And for her, it was like a very lonely time, very dark. She said everything was gray. She said that whenever she came around, to talk to the different people, it was just gray. No one could hear her, and no one could feel her.
Does sound very sad and lonely. Now, at this point, I mean, does she have some others that she is associating with? I mean, obviously Gary, but or is there also some people that she does still visit on this earth?
She says she's really, she's with Gary. She's with several others, that were connected to her during that time frame. But she said that she was waiting for Gary. She said she knew when she crossed that Gary's time was limited, and that they would be reunited. And even though there was a falling out over the years, she always felt like he was her little brother.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, that show ran like about 9 years, so in a way that would have been probably at least the closest thing she maybe had to a real family. Probably same with Gary, I'd imagine.
And she said that with that cast, they were kind of like brother and sister, and they were just had a falling out. Even with Todd Bridges, she says she was close to him at one time, but he was really at the point of just ignoring everyone because he was involved in the same line of drugs and just the problems coming up. And she's worried for him. She said that his time on this earth is also limited. She said probably within the next 2 years he's going to go ahead and pass.
Well, would you say at all there was any period in her life that, she could say she was the happiest, or was it pretty much kind of a never-ending cycle?
When I'm talking to her, she said no. She said she was just glad that she was on the other side. There's a very tragic story with her, and I just sense her despair. Even now that she's on the other side, there's still a sense of regret and a sense of despair. And normally when we talk to people who've crossed over, they're in a very happy state of mind, and she seems to still be in what we would call purgatory or hell within herself. She's with Gary, and Gary is trying to give her a lot of support and energy, but definitely she's coming here today, I think, to kind of clear up the record, to let people know she wasn't a bad person. It was just the circumstances that she was dealing with that caused her to go down the road she did.
Well, unfortunately, her type of circumstances, are, she's not alone, and there's still plenty of people still, amongst us now that, go through similar type things. What advice might she have for them?
She tells me that really the only advice is just to stay away from people that use you. She said that there's a lot of people out there that are just users, and she said she never really saw that. She just wanted to be accepted. She wanted a family. She just wanted, people around her that loved and cared about her. And she said she really didn't find that until she crossed over, and then, as she stated earlier, wasn't really aware of that for many of our Earth years.
Yeah, I know what she's talking about. I like to refer to them as energy vampires, pretty much. And there is a lot of them, and I usually try and avoid them as much as possible, so I can definitely relate to that. Now, it seems like, the whole cast, had a lot of problems overall. And would they all have different reasons, or do you think there's any one cause that they all have kind of had their ups and downs?
She said it was just being famous too soon. for her, that was kind of, the problem was just that she was, just got famous really quickly and really never had a childhood. And, they just counted on each other. And when that cast broke up, she said she kind of just lost touch with reality all the way around. And she said that with Gary, Gary says now that, he agrees with her in the sense that, there's just too much too soon, and no one really cared about them. They were just, money for the network. And with Gary, he's now talking to me. She's kind of stepped back away. So if you want to ask Gary some questions, this would be the time.
Well, I know, especially, with Gary, I was even more shocked, especially, he was only just a couple years older than I am, and I remember growing up watching his shows, so I was especially saddened by his passing as well. And he had a lot of obstacles he had to overcome, even starting at a very early age with, especially health conditions. And there's, people also that, have these problems now. What advice would he have for people that are struggling with severe health problems? Because he really did overcome a lot of that very well.
He says just have hope. With him, he said that everyone always treated him like a little kid. Even when he was an adult, they still saw him as a little child. And he said that was really rough for him because, he always wanted a relationship, a healthy relationship. And he said that most women didn't take him serious. Most women wanted to, pat him on the head and sit him on their lap, but nobody really wanted to be with him for him. He said that even though he was famous, they really were just after the fame and the money. And I think that's kind of why him and Dana came in together. He said there's a lot of, similarities in their situation. Even though he wasn't really on drugs like Dana was, he kind of dealt with it in a different way, but he never really felt accepted when he was alive.
Well, I know even a lot of that, with the stunting of his growth, stemmed from a lot of the medications from his, kidney transplant at the age of 2. So, like I said, he was hit with a lot at a very early age, and, he did overcome it probably better than most people could have, that's for sure. Now, would he be able to say he's achieved some peace at this point?
He says he feels very peaceful. For him, that was kind of a very trying time for him when he was alive. But he said that once he crossed over, he was very close to some of the other stars who had crossed over around the same time frame. And for him, that was kind of just where everyone was coming together, and it was kind of like a very happy reunion for him. And he said that Dana was not there at his crossing. He had to kind of search her out. He said that she was just wandering, and one of the first things that he did once he crossed over was to kind of bring her back into the more positive light. He said that she was kind of in a dark and dreary place, and he was happy to be able to help her to obtain that somewhat happiness.
Well, that's great, because, was there anyone else that came to greet him?
He says there was a group. I mean, for him, he wasn't really worried about one. He was worried about them all. And, he says that there was more than 20 spirits that were there on the other side for him, waiting to greet him and to embrace him. He said that they were kind of worried for him that he would go down to, the dark side, if you want to call it that, he says, like Dana had. And for him, it was kind of, his crossing was very difficult, for what happened to him. He said that he was also, there was some foul play there, and he said that was something that him and Dana had a lot in common, but that the spirits were worried about him, and there to greet him, to bring him to the light, so that the same thing would not happen to Dana.
Well, he did skip ahead on the questioning, because yes, that was one of the ones I had, was what was the cause of death, and was there definitely some foul play involved?
He said that him and his wife had been fighting for many weeks over money, and she was never satisfied no matter how much he brought in. And since he wasn't acting anymore, it was difficult to bring that money in, and when it was there, it was gone. And it was kind of, one of those things where he was always in debt. In fact, he says that he never got out of debt. Even after he died, nothing was arranged for him, and they were almost afraid they weren't going to have a gravestone for him.
Yeah, I remember hearing that even after a year after his death, it still really hadn't been settled as far as, plus the quick, handling of the remains and everything. It was, very unfair.
He said it was just to cover up his death. He said that he was cremated, that they were contemplating what was going to happen, and he said he'd asked them specifically not to cremate him. He said that was one of his biggest fears, was to be burned, and he said that was just a cheap way out for his estate to get rid of the body, so there wouldn't be a big investigation as to what happened. And he said that with his passing, it was sudden, but everyone expected it. They thought he would go a different road and maybe die from kidney disease or liver disease or something like that. He said that no one actually expected him to take a fall, and they said that he said that the people around him were saying that he was dizzy and there was other problems, and he said there was just a bunch of crap, except to use another word. And for him, that was not really disappointing because it was his time, but at the same time, he wishes that people would know that there was nothing wrong with him. He was healthy. He was not happy, but he was healthy.
So literally, he was probably pushed.
He was definitely pushed, he said. And she let him lie there for several hours before calling for help. She wanted to make sure he was dead. And then she claimed that she was got other people to claim that they were with her during this time, and so there was a big cover up for him, and the circumstances were not pretty. He said there was a lot of prejudices involved as far as against African Americans that were going on as well in that area, and he said that was one of the reasons why they helped cover up the fact that he was actually murdered.
Well, as part of his daily activities now, is this something he still is pursuing, or trying to help others that are maybe in similar situations, probably especially in stardom or things like that?
He says that he watches over the child stars. He's worried for Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen. He said that their lives are similar to his life, and everybody cashed in on them when they were younger, and now that they're getting into their 20s, he said that their difference is they have a lot of money. And he didn't, he was also taken advantage of, he said, from management teams, from parents, from family members who just basically spent it all and didn't save anything for him. And so he had the fame, but he didn't have the fortune.
Well, would he say that, did he ever want to be a star, or did stardom just kind of find him, or, was pretty much set up around him by some of these people he mentioned?
He said he really didn't have a choice. He said that, they saw him, with his acting abilities from an early age. He said he would, perform for the family, he would hang out and make everybody laugh, and they thought, hey, well, wouldn't it be good to kind of get him, into the acting business? And he said it really, for him, that's not what he wanted to be. He would have liked to have gone into the medical fields, and he would have liked to have made some definite contributions in that field, but he wasn't really able to go to school very much when he was younger, and he said he didn't do well because no one ever sat down with him and actually explained things to him. They kind of just got him through it, and he got good grades, but he said he never learned anything. So when it came down to go to college, he wasn't prepared. He said there's just no way he could go to medical school at that point, and that was really sad for him. He's just always cashed in on his name, and that's what everybody was after, his name.
Well, did he have any favorite part of being a star, or was it something he really just detested all along?
He said it really wasn't detesting it just was what was natural and normal for him. He never really had that opportunity just to know anything different. Since a very early age, he said that's all he remembered was going to sets, and really hanging out with those people. He calls them those people, and just that Hollywood lifestyle, and everybody just expected him to say okay. But later in life, he wishes that he could have done more roles, but he was typecast at that early age, and he never overcame it.
Well, I think especially since he was a little person, I know he had also worked with I think Joe C in a video, but there probably wasn't a whole lot of work. So it's probably, a common problem for a lot of people that are a little bit height challenged.
So that was a definite thing. He didn't have the leading actor roles because he didn't look like a leading actor. And, and as soon as he would try to, put himself out there and, he was typecast and people just didn't take him serious. It was kind of like what his wife did with him and set her on his lap and kind of patted him on the head, and it was like, oh, great job, but no one ever called back. And with the height challenge, she said, that was kind of, it's not something he could control, and that was really something that he wishes that he would have been taller. He would have gone a lot further, he said. He was really serious about his work, and he said that that was a role of a lifetime, literally, and he says, the music video that you're referring to, he said was a very happy time for him because he got to perform, even though he was himself, he still was that moment of in the sun, for sure.
Yeah, I thought it was a pretty neat video also, and unfortunately I know Joe C had passed on not too long after that video too. Was there any kind of link to that, or was that just really kind of a coincidence?
He says that people travel in circles when they're on the earth. He said that, both of their careers were kind of on the outs, and, that video was a resurgency for him. He got several calls after that video to do some different parts, but he didn't want to do... He said that he got a lot of different, offers for different roles after that video, but none were what he wanted. He really got a lot of offers for different plays, but there weren't a lot of television offers. He said that he'd been offered a couple of roles, one on Lifetime, he said, and he had to turn it down because his health was deteriorating at that point, and he wasn't able to, accept it.
Well, that's definitely a shame. Now, I know also, he ran for California governor in 2003, and I had heard originally it was, somewhat of a publicity stunt, but he actually did have a lot more votes than probably anyone expected. I think he finished about 8th. Was politics something that maybe he would have liked to pursue if he had had more time?
He says for himself personally, that was just a way to get his name back out there, in the news, and to see if he could get a couple of roles. But he wasn't opposed to the idea. He said it was someone serious about it. He said he always was a political activist when he was alive, and always wanting to be involved in politics, and that was kind of the reason why he allowed them to, put his name out there. And if he would have won, he said he probably would have been a good governor, but it just wasn't meant to be. It's just one of those things that, actors do, he says, to keep their name in the press.
Now, besides the money problems, as far as over with his adopted parents, was that the only really reason that the relationship was strained? Or, were they ever really kind of a family to him? I know they had taken him in probably since the age of 1 or 2.
He says as far as his family was concerned, it was all about the money. He said that was really all they cared about was the money, how much money they could make. They were never really close. He said they never really connected. They, made him call him mom and dad, but it was not like they were his real parents. And they kind of reminded him all the time that he was, not part of the family.
That really makes you feel real nice. Was there anything, that he wished he would have done differently or can think of that he could have even done differently? Because, he was kind of manipulated from the get-go, really.
He said he was kind of stuck in the circumstances and there really was nothing anybody could do about it. And for himself personally, that was kind of really a sad position to be in. But yet at the same time, it was, it was his fate. He made a lot of people laugh. He touched a lot of lives, and that made him happy. To see himself on TV Land and some of the other reruns was enjoyable for him, but at the same time, it was bittersweet. Wishing that he could get back into it and really, go back into the thing that he loved. It's the only thing he knew. It wasn't like he really loved it, to the point. As he said, he wanted to be in the medical profession, but that kind of just gave him the opportunity to, touch people's lives. And he said that when he crossed over to the other side, he realized how many lives he really touched, how many inspiring moments he did, for other people that were high challenged, and just dealing with, all the health issues that he had to deal with. It just was an inspiration, and that was worth it to him.
Well, is there, among some of these other people, is there any more close personal friends that are still among the living that he does, visit or kind of check up on?
He says he spends a lot of time at children's hospitals. He's like one of their angels, just trying to give them healing energy and to try to help them through a lot of their circumstances. And he said that's one of the benefits of being on the other side. He can be everywhere and nowhere. And for him, he's really amongst the kids. And when their laughter fills him with joy, even on the other side, it's really energy for him that he just looked for his whole life. He spent a lot of time with adults when he was alive and didn't have that opportunity to spend as a kid. And he said that for him, that's kind of where he stood. I find it interesting that he says that he's associated with Michael Jackson on the other side. And we've actually done several interviews about Michael Jackson and with Michael Jackson over the years. And I see them as there's a strong connection between the two of them. They both had that common theme of dying younger than what they should have. And, with him and Michael, there was a connection back in the 70s. He says that for him that was kind of his hero, his idol, and he kind of based a lot of things that he did in his life on Michael Jackson's life. And I can see him and Michael having a lot of conversations now that Michael's crossed to the other side as well.
Wow, so it really is a small world after all, it seems like. Is there any advice or message that he does have for those of us that are still among the living?
For him, really the message that he gives is take care of the kids, look after the kids. And that's really the big thing that he wanted to put out there today, was just to make sure to take care of the innocent. They don't deserve to be abandoned. They don't deserve to feel unloved. And he said that's one of his missions on the other side, is to give as much hope and peace to these kids that are in desperate situations. He said that for himself personally, he wishes that he could have, had that opportunity, and he did not when he was alive.
Had he had lives in the past that were, much happier than this one, or was this about average?
He said that he really didn't have anything that was distinguishing. He was never this small, he said. And, for him, he had a couple of lives in slavery, and this is kind of where he kind of pushed that lifetime into this lifetime. And for him, that was kind of how he felt was a slave to the system, a slave to other people.
Well, is he planning on maybe coming back anytime within the next couple centuries, or is he just going to sit things out for a while?
He said he'll be back. He'll be back. He'll be famous again. He said that this time he kind of knows that in the next life that he's famous is going to be not as a child but as an adult. And he said then that's going to make him feel very satisfied. So he's going to kind of make up for what he missed out on this lifetime as far as being an adult and still being a star. He said that in the future, though, it won't be the same. The stars will not be the same that they are today. I don't know what that means exactly. I'll ask him to kind of expand on that, but he said that the entertainment is going to be a lot different. And he said there'll be more voiceovers than there are live actors. So I wonder what that means. As far as in the digital world, we see a lot of these commercials coming out with these digital actors, so they don't have to pay except for the voiceovers. So he said that there's going to be some changes in the laws that are going to cover the voice as well as the appearance. And he said that's coming up next year. He said that there'll be a lot of different things that will be passed that will help the actors.
Well, that actually makes a lot of sense because I know different technological changes, even from adding sound to movies, that put a lot of original actors that were silent movie actors out of business because they just didn't have the voice for it. So that should be real interesting to see what's coming up.
So we'll be very surprised in the next 20 years exactly how media is presented. He said a lot of it will be digital. He said that there won't be any more studios out there. There'll be green rooms and things like that with all these different sets that are putting out there. He said they'll actually have to work as actors instead of doing what they've been doing. And we've had a lot of sound issues this evening as we start to record this segment, and it seems like every buzz and every beep that could possibly go off has gone off, and we do take a lot of time to actually silence the room from all cell phones and all distractions so that when we do these interviews that doesn't happen. And I think I've heard at least 4 beeps, and I think we have to edit out one of the your alarm went off.
Nothing there.
Nothing was there, and this is kind of very interesting a way to that when the supernatural does happen here in the studios, usually the lights will flash or the computer screen will flash or different things will get erased off the iPod, and it seems like with these two spirits in here it's very powerful to actually have contact with them. I can actually feel the energy level is very, very strong.
Yes, it's definitely very interesting, but it's been a real privilege and pleasure to have them both here, especially at the same time, and I'm glad to hear that they are still doing well on the other side.
They say that one of the people both of them were closest to was Charlotte Rae, and from their days together, and she's kind of like the mother they never had, and for them that was kind of they showed me the redhead, and they said that's mom, that's their mom.
Now, as far as I know, Conrad Baines hasn't had his passing yet, but was he really kind of like the father figure he did portray on the show?
As far as being a father figure to them, no. He was very distant and didn't really have much to do with them. It was just acting, is what they said.
Okay. That is very interesting. Like I said, if they ever have anything else they want to get across, it'd be great to have them back on here. I was glad Dana made it as well. And is there any other words they'd like to maybe close up with, or anything else for the rest of us?
I really feel like with them, they pretty much have said everything they need to say at this point. We want to thank them for coming on the show this evening to share with us their special message. And we always, love it when the different spirits come in and, share with us their perspectives. And usually we find out more truth in the spirit world than we do from the real world. And going back to some of the things that we said a few months back about some of these Inquirer magazines and things, it's just full of lies and propaganda to sell magazines, and a lot of this stuff was untrue. But Gary says a lot of things that were written about him, he actually put in there himself to try to get the truth out there and to make some cash. And so he said he was responsible for at least 70% of the stories that were written about him at the end of his life. He was kind of responsible for that information. Some of it was real, he said, and some of it was just to make money. And but he was on the hotline with several of those magazines, he says, meaning the National Enquirer and some of the others, and it was just a way to cash in. He said that a lot of people believed the crap that he would put out there, and they would pay him $50,000 for this story and $100,000 for that story, and he kind of just was able to corroborate with other friends, and it was just a way to get cash.
Maybe he really was the kid with the 200 IQ, huh? That's pretty clever, actually.
He said that it's just a way to keep his name out there and to feed a few stories that were true, and the rest of it was crap. But for him, that was really just a way to cash in.
That is very interesting. It's quite amusing too. So once again, I'd like to thank having both of you on there, and maybe look forward to having you come back in the future. And we're about out of time for this segment. When we come back from the break, we'll have more.